You ready?
Cool. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Hey, everyone, thanks so much. Skylar here with Jiu Jitsu Nutrition. I am so fired up because today I have an extremely special guest, legend of the sport, legend of the game, Mr. Hodger Gracie. Hey, buddy.
Hey, Skylar, pleasure being here. Awesome to come here to do this interview.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. Over the last couple of months, things just kind of seem to continue being odd with the coronavirus, and it seems like where you're at in the UK is back on lockdown. Talk more about that. What have you been doing through this whole process? Like, what have you been working out, training? What's been going on?
Yeah, so it has been a challenge year. With the lockdown started on March, we were on lockdown for almost 5 months, which was crazy. But then we reopened, and then now we're back into the lockdown again for a month. I think we have a week left. But it's been challenging. It seems that I'm busier than ever, with the academy closed.
Mm-hmm.
But you sit down on your computer. It's like, it takes me like 3 hours a day, just doing things that needs to be done.
Mm.
Well, among other things, and just trying to stay fit and healthy. That's the most important thing. Otherwise, the brain just collapse. Like stress level. But it's been good. I think I'm on other things. I have to say that I'm surviving. I'm happily surviving.
Totally, man. I feel like a lot of us are in that same position. I'm in California, and we kind of have something similar going on, where a lot of the businesses are, basically being shut down and stuff. And with that, a lot of gyms. And to your point, being physically active is, I think, as important as like for the mental side of someone's life than some of the other things that you would normally have to do too. So, man, yeah, it's crazy. What have you been staying in shape and stuff like that if you're on lockdown?
You can have, you can do exercise, you can do other things. And, I try to do as much as I can. I'm still pretty active in terms of, fitness. It's doing whatever I can with this, with this time. But I think it would be worse if I wouldn't be exercising. I think, my stress level would be much higher. I think for everyone, it's not just to strengthen your immune system because of the virus. It's just like, it's such a stress, the biggest stress relief I've known, Not that I'm a very stressful person.
Yeah, you don't seem like a very stressful guy.
Yeah, but it helps, we live in challenging times, we never know exactly what will happen. And I think just, keeping your mind in a healthy state is very important. Feel good with yourself, with your body. I think, we going in towards a direction of the world, depression, you'll probably be one of the biggest problems we have. People, everyone we speak with is depressed, is sad, is not happy. I know very few people that I talk to, and then, they have bright eyes and they say, oh, this is amazing, I'm so happy, life is great. I think this year you haven't actually heard that much, right. Compared to previous years. So, I think for everyone out there, it's very important to stay positive and healthy. Exercise and exercise, nutrition is the most important thing now.
Right. Actually, I want to talk about that. I want to touch on that. Nutrition wise, you have a very regimented, or you're very specific in what you put in your body. As professional athletes are concerned, that's generally like something that you find across the board, right? Like in order to really perform optimally, you have to put things in your body that are going to make you perform the best that you can. Talk a little bit about your diet. Like what do you have are you doing intermittent fasting? Are you eating breakfast, lunch, dinner? What's going on there?
I've done intermittent fasting for a while, and then I stop, and then I did it again, and then I stop. I think it helped me a lot. I don't think I would do that while I was competing because I don't, it's difficult for you uh, to see the exact effect of your body as an athlete. But I think in healthy wise, it helped me a lot. It got me in shape. It gave me a lot of energy. Even eating less, and I mean, crap. I can't say my diet is 100%. So I have a sugar mouth, that's my problem.
Me too. Totally, me too.
Yeah, I mean, that's my real problem. But I try to have the basic of my diet is pretty healthy. I don't eat, regular bad things. I haven't eaten red meat for, over 3 years. I was vegetarian for 6 months, and then I started eating chicken and fish again. I'll go back being a vegetarian. My goal is to be vegan, but I don't want to commit it to that now because I know it will be difficult to do it now in this stage in my life. But eventually I will be. And yeah, I just try to eat as healthy as I can. It's if people that if you try to search, basic nutrition, it's not difficult to know what is good and what is bad to eat.
Yeah.
It's everybody knows fried food is bad, sugar is bad, too much bread, white bread is not great. It's you don't have to be a nutritionist to know what to eat.
Right. Right.
So it's like I try to eat, and I've been an athlete my whole life, so I pretty much have a good knowledge on what I should eat or not. And I try to with the Gracie diet. My grandfather, created the Gracie diet, so I had a huge influence in my life in terms of dieting. And I mean, I try to eat as much green as possible. That's the basic of my diet.
So it sounds like over the years, diets kind of changed a little bit here and there. You did the Gracie diet, you did some other things, intermittent fasting, obviously trying to maintain at least some level of greens. So it seems like that's kind of been the process, I guess, in the last, in your life, right?
Yeah.
So that's interesting. By the way, where did you grow up? Like in Brazil?
Rio.
Yeah.
I grew up in Rio. I lived there till I was 20 years old, and then I moved to London, England.
Interesting. Did you take English lessons in Brazil, or did you just come to
I
England?
just came.
Oh, wow.
My English was very poor when I moved here. My father, he lived here for a few years before I decided to come. So I spent, I would say, 4 years coming here every year for maybe 5 to 6 weeks a year. So that kind of gave me a little bit of a, in my English. I could speak a little bit, but I mean, when I actually moved here, I was like very bad. But I think it's there.
White belt. That's so fun. Dude, tell me about your relationship with your dad, because obviously I follow you on Instagram and I follow him on Instagram, and it seems like you guys have a really fun relationship where you're kind of playing around on the mats a lot and joking and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's the place we can best relate, have a relationship in the mat. It's fun. We always joke around. I love to do videos with him. It's always very entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
I think people, they love that when we actually trying, because it's very difficult to actually do something. You're trying to show something on him, he resists,
right,
and
right.
and then you try to show a move, it becomes a fight. Like, would you just let me show the move? You're actually going to resist while I'm showing.
It's so funny.
To do anything with it.
I crack up every time I see you guys, because you could tell he's just he tries to have fun with you, and that's so fun, man. That's awesome. It's so cool because like having a father figure who's been in jiu-jitsu for as long as your dad has. I mean, that's gotta be so special, man. Like how
it's very unusual. Usually like you see father-son relationship is very serious. It's not very playful. And suddenly I'm like interacting with my dad in the most playful way, possible. It's yeah, we have a great bound. It's it reflects a lot in the mat, so it's really fun.
That's so cool, man. And I'm assuming that's how you got into jiu-jitsu was your dad, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's what my
Part of you
first
grew up, yeah.
yeah, just getting smashed by him at home, you know. My
Well,
father
now,
has the worst neon belly that exists in this earth, and I've been
oh,
on the receiving end of that since I was like very young. That was my introduction to jiu-jitsu. You know how you escape neon belly.
right. Exactly, yeah. Oh man, that's so funny. That's awesome. So like tell me about when you were growing up. Obviously you were introduced to jiu-jitsu through your dad. How was the experience back then versus what it is today? Like how has jiu-jitsu changed in your perspective from back then than what it looks like today?
How did jiu-jitsu change in what aspect exactly?
Just like, and so I guess in Brazil, jiu-jitsu 30 years ago is a lot different than what it is today, right? Like it's just the way that I guess it's taught, the way that there's different structure or different structure and different instruction from different sorts of schools. Have you experienced, I guess, a different environment back then than going around and seeing different gyms today? Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. I would say growing up, especially being like very young, back in the days, the jiu-jitsu schools, it didn't had much a structure of teaching like you have today. You know, it wasn't. It now is a lot more professional and better uh, run in terms of structure of the class. You know, professionalism inside the gym, and you know, on my teenage years, there was no really class. You know, when I was like 16, 17, 18, you know, the class starts at 6, he finishes at 9:30 when the last person leaves the mat and he just tired of sparring. And you know, that's the class. You know, you come in, you know, 6 o'clock is kind of there. You know, sometimes there's a warm up and sometimes there's no warm up, you just stretch out and, you know, then the instructor will show a move. Whoever wants to watch and practice that move, you will do it. And most of the advanced guys, we're just going to talk and chat in the side. And then 7 o'clock, the clock will start. And then the sparring will, you literally just start, you know, every, I don't know, 10 minutes on, 2 minutes break, and you go again. And, you know, you just keep, you know, going as many times as you can. And then people, they would arrive at 8 o'clock, and people who's been there since 6, they were leaving, and you know, kind of that rotation. And I think now it's way more organized and professionally run. You know, like now you have time to come, you have the warm up that everybody has to follow, and you spar, you know, time finish, off the mat.
Interesting. Yeah, speaking of that, Master Nelson Montero, he was telling us, because I'm with Gracie behind Encinitas, and that's where he and Hoffa train and teach. And he was telling me something similar, in that when he used to go in his younger days, the mat would be open, and then you'd come and you'd basically sit down in the middle of the mat, and then you'd wait for someone to come and sit down in front of you too, and then you'd spar at that point. So it sounds something similar to that, right? You just like, do you want to go? Do you want to go? Let's do this. Let's go. You know, and then when you're done, and you just walk off and say thanks and come back the next day for more beatings.
It was much like that.
Yeah, and is that where you met Professor Hoff? Was that Professor Hoffa Hamos?
Yeah, I mean, we are similar age, and you know, we started sort of at the same time in, you know, when 15, 14, 15, we were already training, you know, sort of the same group.
Yeah,
and you know, we're friends till today.
That's awesome. It sounds.
No, he's slightly older, you know, so it took like a few years for us to start interacting more, because you know, if you are 20 something, you're not going to interact with a 16-year-old kid.
Right, right, right.
You just make fun of him in the mat, but
Yeah. He told me at one point that one summer, I don't remember what belt you guys were, but he said that he used to train with you a lot, and then you went away for some school or something like that over the summer, or might have been just doing something different. You came back and you just like grew a foot, and you basically started taking out everybody in the gym. Oh man, that's funny.
yeah, I think at the time that I were going to England to visit my dad,
Okay,
and
yeah.
I stay here like 5, sometimes 6 weeks, and I was like training, teaching, so my improvement was getting quite fast at the time. And
Yeah.
then I was coming back and everyone was beating me up, was getting even, and eventually next year, one of those trips.
Done. Yeah. That's so funny. That's awesome. Who was your favorite training partner when you were younger?
Uh, and I had quite a few. I would say it's the probably in the academy. I mean, I've trained with all the guys in Gracie Barra. They were my training partners. But I would say probably Pedipano is like slightly older than me. But when he was like a black belt, I was already like a high level blue belt competitor. And, we used to train a lot together. But he used to train Cabelinho as well, which is his teacher. So he wasn't there every single day, but he was coming a lot. Him, Professor Flavio Almeida, he was probably the person that I trained the most, because I think he's like 2 or 3 years older than me, maybe 2. And so he was already like very fit competitor, and I was just coming up. And I trained with him a lot from my 16 to, I don't know, 19, 20s. Even like, just before I left, So we were training a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I remember getting some beatings of him. I was growing up, and my goal was to beat him up.
And now you can do it anytime you want. That's awesome.
Payback.
Yeah, payback. How did you meet Professor Braulio Estima?
So Braulio is from the north of Brazil. He was from a Gracie Barra branch in Recife. And he started coming, I think first time I met Braulio was 16. I think he came for the Brazilian Nationals. And he came in just a week before with a few guys of his team to train, so they were training at the academy and then competing on the weekend, and then they, afterwards they would go. So I think the first time he came, I was already training there. And, we became friends, but he was coming every major tournament, because back then all the major tournaments were in Rio. The Worlds, the Brazilian National, the national teams. So he was coming to compete in the big tournaments. So a few times a year, he was in Rio. And I think the more he came, the more he kind of, started interacting more with, with the people in the academy. And we became friends. Then he started coming, staying at my house. And then we became good friends.
That's awesome. And he lives pretty close to you, right? In the UK?
2 hours drive. Yeah,
Okay.
he lives in a city called Birmingham. I live in London. It's about 2 hours in the car.
Yeah. Oh man, that's super
And
cool.
he moved it at sort of the same time as I did. It was crazy. I'm at the airport coming here. I was coming and going a lot. But one time I was like, now I'm moving to England. So this is, one of the trips that when I came here, I said, okay, now there will be my house. Okay, I'm leaving. I'm going to England. I'm at the airport. And then he called me. Hey, Roger, what's up? Hey, what's up, brother? Then he was like, I'm going to London, to the UK. I'm like, I'm at the airport. I'm about to get in the plane. And then, I first he was going to come in for like 2 months. He had a friend here who was going to come to stay with his friend. And by accident, I was coming too. And he came in, and then, I helped him set him up to teach a few classes in Birmingham with this group of guys where my father used to live before. He went there, they loved him, and then they invited him to stay, and he's there till today.
Wow. And do you get to train with him at all anytime that you guys have some time?
Yeah, train a lot. Not nowadays, not that much because it's, I'm retired. But back then, when we were both like competing regularly, we used to every time. I mean, we used to train frequently. I'll say every week. We used to get together and train. So we used to have our battles every week. Good days.
That's awesome. Competition wise, you started at a pretty young age doing competitions.
Yeah, I think probably my first tournament that was maybe 8, 9, something like that.
Yeah, and you
Yeah,
started getting
but
really into it.
yeah, I never really got into it till I was 15, 16. That's when I really got into jiu-jitsu. And I was like, okay, now I want to be the best. Then I was like, okay, I gotta train every day. And then I started training every day from then. I'll say 15, 15 onwards.
When you got really into it, were there specific drills that you were always doing, or was it more of like, I'm just gonna go and handle
Just
it?
train. I mean, there's no secret, It's people they ask me, jiu-jitsu. There's no secret in jiu-jitsu. It's mathematics. The more you train, the better you'll be. It's how I can become the best. Train twice a day. It's not enough. Train 3 times a day. If it's what it takes for you to be the best is to train 4 times a day, train 4 times a day. It doesn't matter. You'll get there. You just need to train a lot. So that's what I did. I was training every day, twice a day since I'm 15 years old. When I was 18, 19, I became good. Back then when I was 15, I was not good. It took me years of training that much to actually be good. No one really looked at me when I was 15 and say, oh, he's going to be good. No, I was just an average kid. And I was a bit chubby from my 10th to 15 years old. I was slightly chubby, not really training much. I was eating all I could. And I was like, okay. I went to see an uncle of mine in the south of Brazil, in Rio, in Florianopolis. And it's because my father never had his gym in Brazil. I lived with him and then with my mom and back and forth. But I never had that father figure that taking me to the academy every day. And then I train every day. I'm in the academy every day. My father. When Halls died, my father was kind of away from jiu-jitsu a lot. Halls is my uncle, his teacher. And, when he died, my father kind of lost the direction in jiu-jitsu. For years, he didn't train. He was training very little. He only started training again when he left Brazil to open his school. First he went to Japan and then he went to UK. So that's when he had his gym, the training. So when I was when I was like 15, 16, 17, going to the UK to see him. And now I have me and my dad going to the gym, like sort of having that jiu-jitsu lifestyle. And it's, teaching the academy, going back and having to go again. So it's, before that, it was, I didn't have it. So when I went to see my uncle in the South, I remember I was 15 and suddenly my cousin Halls were there. He's in New York now, working with Hansel, has his own gym. And he was 3 years older than me, but he was very big. He's taller, average 110 kilos. And he was like a purple belt, training every day. And then they were like talking a lot about, so he was getting ready to compete, talking about the next tournament and training and discussing things. And I was like that daily with them for the whole of 5 weeks. And then I was like, man, I love this. This is amazing. My uncle said, Roger, you have to lose weight, man. Boy, you're not training. I was like getting beat up by everyone that trains regularly back then in the academy. They were beating me up. I was okay, but I was okay for someone that does not train. I barely train much. So, living that sort of life, I was like, man, you know what? I'm a Gracie. My uncle, my cousin said, I love this. I'm going to train. I'm going to be the best. So when I got back to Rio, I was like, man, I'm going to be the best in the world. I'm not going to train every day. So I started training. It's from that moment on, I train every single day. The next year, I went back to live with my uncle because I loved it so much. I was like, okay, he was like, I felt such a huge incentive on his part, or me, like helping me to train. I was like, and he told me, come live with me, train. We train every day. So I went. I lived with him almost a year in the South, and training every day. I was like in love, and and then suddenly I was like 15, and there was already some guys in the academy, 16, 17, 18, 20. So people, competitors that they were training every day to get better, competing. So I kind of went into that rhythm of training, thinking and competing, trying to win. That you can't lose, you have to win. So and then I started training every day. Then I came back to Rio. I was almost 16, and I was training every day, twice a day, every day, twice a day. I mean, it took me years to actually to be considered good. Back then I was just a Gracie that trains, that is trying to be good.
Mm.
I mean, 3 years later, people they looked at me and say, okay, he's something.
Yeah.
But it took me 3 years. Like, for people to actually see me with different eyes. So when the people say, what do you do? What's the secret to be good? There is no secret. You want to be good? Get your lazy ass off the couch and go train.
Yeah.
You will figure out what is good and what is not good for you,
Mm-hmm.
And I've never done anything specific to be good. I've just trained a lot. And, and I think the way they helped me to develop my skills, you have to train specific areas as much as you train full sparring. People, they just want to, if you think about life training, you think about sparring, right? I'm going to warm up, I'm going to drill my technique, and then I'm going to full spar. That's what everybody thinks. So full sparring is great, it makes you tough, but it doesn't really develop a specific technique for each area. You have to train specific training. Still live, but you break down in parts. That's how you get to develop your skills more.
That's dude, thanks for sharing that. I had no idea about all that stuff. Man, that's a lot. Looking back now, was there a particular specific training that you felt really confident in while you were in that stage of becoming who you are today?
No, because back then it was just sparring. I talk a lot of specific sparring, but that came later. That did not came at that time. At that time, it was just training, sparring, a lot of sparring. There was not even a lot of warm up. You get there, you stretch, you touch your toes, you talk, and then okay, so let's spar. The specific training came more. I think the reason that as I became better, naturally my attacks became more efficient, right? Because now, the better I became, I'm able to overcome my opponents. But my defense, which helped me greatly over the years throughout my career, it's because on the beginning of my jiu-jitsu life, not in the beginning, because then I was just a kid, but when I actually decided to be an athlete, because I was not good, but I was already big, and so people that I trained with was bigger and stronger than me.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to get beat up a lot. They used to tap me every session, a few times for a long time. Eventually, over a long time, I developed a good defense. Mm-hmm. So it was getting harder and harder for them to tap me. It's getting harder and harder till it's very difficult for me to be tapped. And then I start catching people. So when my attack became better, I already had a good defense from being attacked for so long. So, and then my attacks became better and better. And, afterwards I just carry on developing my defense even more. But I think initially I had a good defense, and I've never panicked being in a bad position because I was just there all the time.
That's so true. And what's interesting is so I think that a lot of people who start jiu-jitsu, who are new to the sport, who are new to just the lifestyle, they get into it and they start to really enjoy what it is, right? It's just like, it's this amazing experience in which you're sharing and learning and working out all in one. And I think a lot of times people end up getting frustrated early because they get beat up a lot, right? And it's like having and going into jiu-jitsu, understanding and knowing like, hey, you're going to need to learn defense and defense like for a while before you can actually start, you know, making some moves and doing things yourself. And at least for me, like I like when I was a white belt, you know, 2 years ago, and that's all I worked on was my defense, because that's what I felt like, right? Like I always had this idea that, okay, if I have a good defense, it's going to be really hard for someone to tap me. And so all I'm just going to work on is just defense, whether that be from the back or side control, or, you know, if I'm mounted, whatever it is. And I still try as hard as I can in those positions still. And so I can totally understand what you're saying when it comes to making that a priority when you first start training, or when you're, even if you're up to purple belt, right? Like blue, purple, whatever it is, like there's still going to be times where you're stuck in situations and you have to learn how to get out of them. And I still find myself there too all the time. So especially with, you know, Master Nelson and Hoff. So yeah. And then I mean, Master Nelson, I don't know how he does it, but he can move a certain way on inside control, and all of my life just gets it all goes out the window. Like I can't breathe, I can't move. I'm just like, get off of me. You know what I mean? It's amazing. And that's what it takes though, right? Like it takes a really long time of training to understand this is where you should be. It's like this little inch box on the body, that's where you focus on, and that's what happens. And you know, he's been training for as long as he has, and you know, just recently got his Coral belt, so he knows what he's doing. And so anyway, like I try and understand from those positions how to defend that. And so yeah, I hear what you're saying when it comes to defense. When you started to sort of figure out that there were some positions that you could get into after, you know, defending and getting on top or whatever it is, did you like a particular position more than another, attacking wise?
Not really, no, because it's never, you know, I don't think I ever thought like, you know, like, okay, I like this position, so I'm just going to go towards it. It's almost like, you know, it's not, you don't go towards what you like. You go towards what you find easier and more natural to go that way. Does that make sense? So it's
Totally.
not that, for example, I like triangle, and then I'm going to focus in getting triangle, and then I'm just going to ignore other attacks. You know, it doesn't matter what the attack is. You know, of course there is a natural way for your own body type and things that you find easier that you'll be drawn to it, right? It's inevitable. You know, it's your body, your mind, the way you act, your, you know, personality or whatever. You drive you towards that. You just need to, you know, follow the natural path. It's you know, you know, if you ask me the one thing that, you know, the only thing that I can think of is something that I like or I don't like. It's in terms of finish. I prefer chokes than locks, because how many times you see someone resisting a lock, letting the foot pop? You know, I had one of my fights. You know, the guy didn't tap in his arm. He broke. The fight was still on, and so it was a big mess. So chokes does not allow any of that. It does not give your opponent a choice of not tapping, getting injured, and carry on. You pass out. You don't die, but you're out. When the choke is on, you're out. It's not a choice to carry on after that. You can choose not to tap, but you're just going to go to sleep, you know. So especially after my fight, but I knew that before. But I think after that fight, I was like, okay, so for me to go for like a lock, it has to be like you are very tight, and I have to be very confident that I would get. Otherwise, I would just gonna wait and carry on towards to try to choke someone. Is more guaranteed that fight will finish if you go for the choke than for a lock.
Was that in a
So
tournament that lock?
yeah, it was the fight. It was in the Worlds 2004 when I fought Jacare. Jacare was like, I don't know if you know, he's a very strong jiu-jitsu player as well. Ronaldo Souza, he's in the, he fights for UFC now. So it's, it was one of my biggest opponents in jiu-jitsu. We fought many times. We always used to meet each other in the final. And one of them was in 2004. The final of the open class, I won my weight, he won his weight, and then we fought the open class final. And I think 8 minutes, 8 minutes throughout the fight, I'm losing by points. And I put him on arm lock, very good arm lock from the guard. I'm squeezing. And for sure I thought I was going to get, and then suddenly you feel like slipping away. The arm is popping. I could feel the elbow popping a few times, and he was struggling, he was carrying on popping. And then finally he pulled his arm out and the fight was still on. He didn't want to give up. The referee messed up. I mean, it was very brave of him. I'm not. I still think I won that fight, but it's whatever. It's whatever. But he carried on. He chose to carry on with the law. If in a choke, it doesn't matter what you choose to, you will lose because you pass out.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Because I find myself in that position too. Like I'll get someone in an arm lock or some sort of lock, and they'll slip out, and I'll be like, well, that sucks. Now I got to figure out what to do next, right? But to your point, if you have a choke, it's either tap or go to sleep. So something to work on. That's in my mind now. So
Look how many footlocks you've seen people in the tournaments, they're going for it and they just don't tap. They let the foot out and they carry on fighting. I mean, they'll be limping for a while afterwards.
Right.
But the blood is still hot, it's still flowing, and then they carry on.
Right.
It happens all the time.
Apart from that fight, are there other fights that you remember being like, or are there other fights that you recall that you were like, that was amazing, like that I felt like I was on at that point?
There were a few. I had some good fights, I have to say. There was a few fights when it's like, wow, you remember forever.
Right.
Yeah, I think the first memorable fight I had, that was a brown belt, and I fought Damian Maia as a black belt. So I was brown belt, he was black belt, and we had a battle on Brazilian national teams. This was a team tournament. It's teams against teams. So it's 5 against 5. Whoever wins majority. The team advances, so it's not individual. You can lose, but if your team wins, you still advance. And so we were in São Paulo, and me and him in the final, and then it was 2-2. So if I win, our team will go on. If I lose, or it was 2-1. But it's mine. If I win, we would have won we would go. I think that was the final, semi-final. I don't remember. I think it was the final. And I mean, I'm a brown belt. Okay, I was already very good brown belt, but still, and he was already competing as a black belt. He was winning quite a lot of things. And I'm like, okay, I need to go in and like do my best, So it's usually at my slowest start at like kind of pick up my pace as the fight goes. And the referee say go, I win, full on. And that was such a hard fight physically because I started too fast. I didn't pace myself. I was just like, man, I need to go and win. I'm just going fight. There was no strategy, no nothing. I'm like, okay, we're fighting now for, all the strategy, all the plan went out of the window. I was like, trying to take him down like crazy. Usually I pull guard. So, halfway through the fight, I'm that tired and losing by 2 points.
Oh
I'm that.
no.
I remember, the fight stopped and I looked, I was like 5 minutes halfway there and I'm like, oh my God. And then I end up reversing the fight. I won. But that is like, was such a, back then it was my first big achievement, in terms of winning victory against a bigger, better guy. I've already won, big titles in the purple, in the blue, but as a brown belt, I would say blue and purple is like too amateur to be spoken up. It's like brown and black. That's like professional level. Brown is like getting there. Black is like, okay, professional. So blue and purple does not count. So, it was like brown, almost black. I was doing great against black belts. So it was like, okay, this is when I'm to fight professionals, So I went like full on. There was a few others. This fight against Jacare in 2004 was good. When I fought again I fought him again in 2005 in the ADCC. When we fought again in the final, and then so I went for the choke. That was a great, great fight. That was such a hard tournament, probably the hardest I've ever fought. And and then that was the final, the end of everything. It was a huge tournament, the best in the world are fighting there, and me and him in the final. So there was a lot of weight behind it. So
Interesting. Oh man, that's so cool. So cool. What you said that the purple and the blue belt were, kind of amateur, on the scale of competition, more amateur. Do you have a particular belt that you remember being like your favorite, or the one that you learned the most, the one that you had the best experiences in?
So usually is the blue belt is the one you stay the longest. That's when you get your base of your game, your knowledge. Because if you think as a white belt, never trained before, you start training, it takes about like a year. Your understanding, your reactions, it's you in the learning process to see how things work. What is fighting? What is jiu-jitsu? Side control and back and open guard and close guard and half guard and turtle mount and so many different things, so complicated with the moves. I would say that after the first year you can see how things work, right? Been training for a year, you have a very basic understanding of jiu-jitsu. So after a year and something, let's say you get your blue belt, let's put year and a half. Like year and a half, if you train for the year and a half, you should be a blue belt by then, sort of. Depends where you train. Some places they give you faster, some places they hold you for 3 years. Nowadays less. Before, they used to keep people in the white belt for years. But, they want them to compete more. But I would say average is the blue belt that you stay the longest. So that's where you get the basic of your game. So you're no longer white belt, now you're blue belt. So now you're developing your game, right? So before white belt, you're just learning. You don't have a game as a white belt.
You're defending. You're defending.
And you're learning how to pass, it's sort of the learning how things work. So blue belt, then you start developing your game. That's when you have your base of it. So either, you like on top or like at the bottom, or if you like the bottom, you're going to already starting, let's say you like spider guard or like butterfly guard. So that should be sort of your game. That's where you'll be developing and finding that what works and what don't work. So that's where you learn your defense. So when you get to purple belt, you already establish your game, your knowledge. You already, you can see almost everything that is coming in your direction. Even you won't be able to stop it. A black belt will crush you, but you can see what's coming. And then brown belt, the brown belt is a step to the black belt. So that's brown and black is very close together. Usually brown belt, people stop training, but usually it's not the belt that you stay the longest, you stay the least. So it's people, I have some brown belts, they've been brown belts for 8 years or maybe even more, but that's their fault. They don't train constant, they train on and off. It takes longer, but if you're training regularly, you shouldn't take too long. So I'd say blue belt, it's the belt that get you most, the base that you should learn the most. If you haven't learned on that belt, you need to learn other belts.
And what was your favorite or the one that you enjoyed the most belt-wise?
I would say, black belt is for sure because that's what I'm the longest, and that's what I learned the most. But I would say blue belt, it was the belt that I liked the most because everything happened while I was in that belt. I went from being like a fresh 16-year-old blue belt, getting beat up by most of the blue belts. And that's when by the time I left the blue belt, I was really good. I stayed 3 years in my blue belt. And I would say that I started from being a crap blue belt, getting beat up by everyone. In my last couple of months, let's say the last year, I was pretty good. I would say blue belt, I used to top black belts as a blue belt. So I was pretty good. Not the top blue belt, the black belt, the top blue belt, it was still smashing me. But it was hard. I would say that was a very good blue belt, very strong, very, very, very strong blue belt. So if I would choose a belt, I'll say blue, because then when I went to purple, I only stayed 1 year purple belt, and then brown, I stayed just 1 year because I was so strong at blue belt. That's why I went faster to the other belts because my uncle Carlos, he held me in that blue belt for you can say maybe a bit longer than he could have given my purple belt before, because I would only lose to black belts, but when I was a blue belt, no other belt would beat me. Not a beating. It could be, it was even.
Yeah. Tell me about the worst injury that you've ever had in Jiu Jitsu.
In Jiu Jitsu, I had two. The worst, and I never had any bad injury. I would say probably because I had my shoulder and my knee training with Broad. Because at first, my right knee, I first injured doing boxing. Like I was sparring, and I rotate to throw a right hand. My foot got stuck under the ropes, so my foot didn't turn, and my whole body turned. So my knee went plop. It came back, but when you feel going, and it was swallow, I was like on crutches, but that was boxing. But twice after that, training with Braulio, my knee twisted, but not as bad as the first time. But the second time was pretty bad. I was out for a few weeks, but I hurt my shoulder. I landed on it a few times. So by one time I landed bad, but again, it was just maybe 3 weeks. So I would say shoulder because of that, I feel constant pain for 20 years in my shoulder. So it's always there. So if you think of a bad, I never needed surgery in the shoulder, anything like that, but I fell maybe 2 or 3 times on top of my shoulder, and it's never the same. It will never be the same.
Yeah.
So
do you
scars?
Yeah. Do you have like a regimen after training, or some sort of way for your body to kind of like relax and realign itself? Like, do you do chiropractic or any sort of things like that?
No, I stretch. Like now, before you stop training, stretching or no stretching, you get up, shower, go home. It's all the same. But now I feel that I have to stretch after every training session, because you just you loosen up the body, your back goes back to normal. Otherwise, your muscles are still tight and curved. So I feel now, as long as I stretch after every training session, my body gets stay healthy. If I don't stretch, when it cools down, my muscles stay still they still contract. So I'm kind of pushed a little bit.
Mhm.
But yeah, I feel I need chiropractic and things like that if something happens. I think as maintenance, not really. I think stretch, so if I'm very tired, I take a hot bath, so yeah, and you can do basic weights. There's different ways you can do weights, but I think basic weights are very important to keep your body straight. Not heavy weights. I've never pushed more than 80% of my limit ever, because it just tightens too much your muscles, and you're stronger. But jiu-jitsu is not about muscle strength. You can be strong without lifting without lift weights. But I feel like even like just squats, pull up and push ups, it just keep your body much straighter, because jiu-jitsu is very it's not how you say that it's not it doesn't make your body straight, because it works different on both sides of your body, so you're stronger left and right. So it's unequal. It's a very unequal sport. Mm-hmm. So your body, it takes the alignment out of your body. So if you do like just squat is something that is a whole body workout. You can say just legs, but it's a whole body workout, and it kind of works your body equally. So you compensate what training the alignment that you miss in training. So when I do that, I feel my body gets much healthier. When I train, I don't feel much, I can train more without worry to be injured or feeling pain afterwards. So, if you're training too much and I'm not stretching or not doing like basic weights, my lower back sometimes start to be painful. The neck, jiu-jitsu players, they have a lot of neck problems, lower back, shoulders and knee pretty much. But I say lower back and neck, it's the most common. And that is because of the alignment on your body. Jiu-jitsu is very, in jiu-jitsu, you're too much like this, head forward, back curve. You're in that position the whole time you're training. So you need to do something kind of make you straighter. So I would say, just if I squat twice a week, nothing heavy, you can squat with 10 kilos, you already make a huge difference, just by squatting and using the whole, your muscles equally. It activates everything pretty much.
So it's essentially sounds like just making sure that your body isn't overcompensating, reorganizing your muscles so that they're working together rather than being favored more to one side or the other. Yeah. Do you do anything else besides jiu-jitsu for fun? Obviously stretching and weightlifting, but I don't know, do you like go bowling or something?
Yeah, I love to play chess though.
Okay.
I'm getting into it.
Okay.
So I'm far from being good, but that's my goal now.
Chess.
Chess.
Hey, that's a great thing to do, man. I mean, talk about a mind workout. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really enjoying it lately. This year I would say that I'm being more active in chess, and it's making a big difference. And something to keep your mind healthy, and it's such an amazing game.
Yeah.
So hard.
It's hard. It is hard. I was thinking about this while you were talking about the stretching. In Rio, did you grow up like surfing and stuff too, or was it just?
Yeah, surfing, of course. Yeah, I mean, I love surfing.
You still surf today?
Yeah, not as much as I would like, because there's no beach in London, but
right,
it's quite far away.
Right.
But I would say the last 2 years not much, but maybe 3 times a year I go somewhere to surf.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm at least back home, right? You probably go back to Rio a few times and surf down there and enjoy warm water versus freezing cold English water.
The water in Rio in summer is cold.
Oh, it is? Oh,
it's freezing. I mean, not freezing cold, but it is cold.
Yeah. I know that there's a few waves in Cornwall and kind of the West Coast, right?
Yeah, you can find a few spots here. There's a beach about 2 hours drive from London. Sometimes you can get a bit of a bit of wave there. And I mean, they've just opened artificial wave in Vista, in Bristol, 2 hours away from here.
Mm-hmm.
And Broly went there. He said it was pretty good. I haven't been there yet. I've been one in Wales.
Oh,
I was
really? I didn't know they had them there. Huh.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty fun. I have to say, it's a lot better than not doing anything. But it's pretty fun. It's like a meter wave. I think that the new one in Bristol, they have about a meter and a half, maybe, and it's just pretty good. You can have a lot of fun. You're not in the beach, but in terms of surfing, you can see the surf range, right?
Yeah.
You have in California.
Yeah.
You see the videos. It's amazing.
Yeah. For surfers, it is the future, because like you were saying, in Bristol and in Wales and some of the other places in the world in which you don't have access to a beach, you now have a way to surf, right? And that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I saw a photo Braulio had put up on Instagram, and it looked like it was that wave in Bristol.
Yeah, I was probably there.
Yeah, it looked like he was having a lot of fun. So I told him when I come out there, he's gonna have to show me around and show me that spot, because that'll be pretty fun. So. That's awesome. Cool, man. Well, let me ask you a few more things. When looking into 2021, do you still follow the competitive circuit? The competitive?
A little, not a lot, a little.
Is there anybody that you're watching?
I'm terrible with names, by the way. I'm just gonna, I wouldn't like to go there because I confuse people, I mix it up, and I just forget people's name. And numbers is something that I know. Numbers is something sticked in my mind. Names, street names. Like I know people's telephone number, but I don't know the names. It's great. But there's some good guys coming in. I think what I see now, of course, you have your exceptions, but people that quite bulky. It's like they're looking a lot more physical than technical nowadays. Mm-hmm. I have to say lately. Again, it's you have your exceptions, but I think especially the big guys, over 80 kilos, they all on a more physical and explosive side of it than technical. Like you don't see any Marcelo Garcia, now beating up the big guys with his great technique, being a small guy. But it's been good. It's always good to still watching them.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any plans for 2020? Obviously, you've got Gracie .tv. Is that right? HydroGracie.tv.
Yeah.
Are there any sort of other things that you've got going on right now on your end as far as projects?
I think now that's in 2021. I'm really going to focus in getting my gym back up. Mm-hmm. This year has been. For the Jiu Jitsu world, it's been disastrous because, we've been closed for so long. You see many gyms closing down. It's a bit worrying. I feel it's, we need to get together and push everything back up. So, my goal is literally to focus in my gym now and get back to where we were before. And, still focus on Gracie TV. I'm doing now a course with BJJ Fanatics.
Nice.
I'm doing 2 courses with them. We just finished filming last week, the Side Control, which has been really good. There's a lot of great stuff there. So that will go on sale now, I think, on Black Friday.
Nice.
So we should do good.
Cool, man. Nice. And is there anything that you want to share with your fans and supporters as we kind of wrap this up here?
Not really. The Gracie TV and BJJ Fanatics that I just said, that should be pretty amazing. Gracie TV is the platform I created on, the website. I think now we have, almost, it's more than 800 videos, and it's everything of me is there. There's a lot of sparring. Every time I train with the students, anyone that comes into the gym, sometimes I film. There's videos of my dad, me and him training a bit, and it's pretty fun. It's a good project to do.
That's awesome, dude. Roger, thank you so much for taking the time. I'm so excited that we had a chance to do this, and I am excited to check out BJJ Fanatics and the project that you have there, and then Gracie TV. Man, it was a pleasure, and and I'm hoping to see you again soon, my friend.
Absolutely.
All right, man.
Thank you very much, bro. And
Yeah.
I'll go back to my night here. You enjoy your son.
Yeah, it's just about
Yeah.
11 o'clock here, so that sounds great. Thanks, buddy.
Like you, but it's okay.
All
Awesome, bro.
right.
Thank you, man.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, bro.
Cool.
Bye.
Cool, man. Well, that was it. It's pretty simple.